This is Steve Arnold, back on this beautiful day right before Mother's Day, and trying to continue a discussion about Ayn Rand that we picked up from last week because the movie was not so great. And conservatives have a soft spot for Ayn Rand because she is so anti-statist. She's always been against big government. I think because she grew up during a period of total chaos in the Soviet Union, which the Bolsheviks took over, Lenin was in power, and then, of course, Stalin, and it was just hateful. And she finally immigrated to America and became a writer and started what is known as objectivism. And it's a philosophy that deals with making sure that you satisfy yourself. It's all about yourself. It's completely atheistic. There's lots of, William F. Buckley called it 1,000 pages of ideological fabulism. He said, I had to flog myself to read it. but conservatives still like her, and we were hoping for the best for this movie because we like people who are opposed to big government. And so, but Ayn Rand is an objectivist. She was an atheist. She in many ways, it's a sad story. I give her a pass on a lot of that because I consider her to be yet another victim of Joseph Stalin. Stalin not only killed millions and millions of people, but think of all the orphans. Think of all the broken lives. Think of all the people sent to somewhere far away from their home. So she is just another victim of communism and Stalinism in particular. But she definitely warrants a mention. We have talked about so many exciting things on this radio program. We have had great guests just today from the Civitas Institute, but we've had the pro tem of the Senate, Phil Berger. We've had a number of great guests. We've also talked about a number of issues, and we're going to get back to local issues now. I've got an old friend of mine, Trudi Wade, who's on the Greensboro City Council, and she is coming up. Trudi, thank you for being here this morning. I should say, Dr. Wade, you have been on the City Council. You've done great work on the Guilford County Commission. You've been a public servant for years. And I wanted to ask you, now, are you over this 9-hour marathon City Council meeting that you had the other day?
Well, Steve, since I still work every day, I'm still a little tired, but we did last 9 hours, and it's always good to get a little rest after a meeting. I'm sure you know about that.
Yes. Now, I wanted to know where we stand on redistricting. Is the issue over and done at this point?
Well, Steve, it will be submitted to the Justice Department. I assume it will be going today. To the Justice Department. When it's okayed by the Justice Department, it will be the final product. Does
the map that you approved make any significant changes beyond just making the districts a little bit tighter from a population perspective?
That's basically it, Steve. It moves 2 precincts. G31 goes from District 3 into District 4. And then my precinct, G56, leaves District 5 and goes over to District 1. That's actually Four Seasons Mall that was moved. We had to do this redistricting because the variance was almost at 10%. And you're not allowed to go over 10% in the variance of population from district to district.
Right.
And if we had just annexed one more development in my district, we would have been over that variation. And we try to do it each year, as you know, when the census comes out every 10 years.
Yes, have to do it every 10 years. The state, the county, everybody else is going to do it. And the city has to do it too. And what sure was controversial, it doesn't seem like much is different from the existing plan. On the White Street landfill, Trudi, another one of the big issues that you guys on the City Council in Greensboro are facing, where does that stand right now? Tell me what the council is doing just briefly.
Well, we've actually, our last meeting on Tuesday, we narrowed down to 3 selections on RFPs we received from 3 companies. And the council will, on their May 17th meeting, be discussing the qualities of these 3 companies. Now, I do want to make it plain that the landfill has never been closed.
Well, for years, there's been discussion about whether to open or not to open the White Street landfill. And so the assumption, of course, is that the landfill has been closed.
No, it's always taken construction waste, as you well know, Steve.
Yes.
And we also continue to have a permit to take solid waste, and we send actually what's called the sludge from the sewage plant over, which meets that qualification. So the landfill is already permitted to be taking household waste.
If you carry through with your plans, just a rough number on how much money you expect to be able to save taxpayers in doing what you're talking about doing.
Well, Steve, I think a low estimate a year would be between $5 million to $8 million dollars a year, but over a 15-year period, if we sign a 15-year contract, then we would probably save somewhere between $50 million to $100 million. Wow.
Well, Trudi, thank you so much for all you do on the Greensboro City Council, and I very much appreciate you being here with me.
Steve, if I could say one thing, I would like for the people to understand that this is also an election year, and sometimes people try to get attention on our city council, and we are working well, and we are doing positive things. Although in any election year, as Steve, you well know, that we play a lot to politics during that season.
Yes. You are absolutely right. And there's going to be a mayor's race, council race. It's all coming up this year. So you make a great point there, Trudi. I think the citizens are getting more and more sophisticated about such things.
Right, because most of our votes are at least 7-2, if not a larger majority.
Yes.
So we are working well together, contrary to what the political climate is. And, everybody wants attention when they're running for an office.
Yes, you are right. Thanks, Trudi.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
One issue that I want to briefly talk about is this speech that Obama gave this week. He was so over the top with the most outrageous speech. And I just want to give you something to kind of go and whet your appetite for next week, because this is a subject that I really want to deal with. One of the passes that Republicans give Obama is they say, well, he's a terrible president, he's a liberal, he's a radical, but, boy, he's eloquent. I want to say he is not eloquent. He is hopeless at making a good speech. He had a great opportunity to make a good speech, and he blew it. He talked about himself, I. If you go back to the great speeches of history, you will find that there is always that move in those speeches to bring people together in a we fashion. Now, we're going to do that next week. This week is Mother's Day weekend, and I have a fantastic mother. And in honor of Mother's Day, I would like to play something that she played on the piano, and I would like you to listen to this in honor of my mother and all of our mothers. I told you my mother could play the piano. I have been blessed with a marvelous, wonderful mother, as many of you have. And since this is Mother's Day weekend, I wanted to play that in honor of her. I have had great time this week, as every week, with mirth and good cheer, bringing you news that is vital, things that that are most important. This is Steve Arnold. You can reach me at thestevearnoldshow@gmail.com. Until next week, be good.